Hoxamayock, everybody. Y'all having a good time at Tabernacles?
Yes, sir.
For y'all on the Outreach Ministry program, we're in the 6th day of Hag Sukkot, or Feast of Tabernacles. And y'all staying dry? No. It's been quite rainy, but we've still had a great time, haven't we? Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. All right, y'all. Today, I'd like to ask y'all about something. We've been having some really good messages while we've been at Sukkot, haven't we? One of them that really stuck and just like talked to my heart was one Miles gave the other day about being strong and courageous. Did y'all enjoy that?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question. What is the antithetical adversary, or just the opposite of being strong and courageous? Can you sum that up into one word? Fear, coward. I like those. Let's go with fear. How many of you have ever been afraid? Yeah? Fear is something that's a deep and personal thing, all right? It can range from anything. I mean, like, for instance, do y'all know what cave crickets are? All right, for y'all that don't know, there are these crickets that are about yay big, and they're kind of a yellowy brown color, and they live in basements and around well houses and things like that. And my wife, if she sees one of those, will make this sound that you've never heard before. I mean, it's this guttural, and she says, I will hurt myself trying to get away from those things. She has fear of cave crickets, all right? That's one kind of fear. That's very personal. However, we've got brothers over here that have served in the armed forces that have actually been in active combat. Their definition of fear may be quite different than yours or ours. Let that sink in for a minute. But I don't want you to beat yourself up if you ever have been afraid, because it's been here since the very beginning. Let's turn our scriptures to Genesis 3. Might be. We're just going to read one verse here. We're going to be in Genesis 3:10. What just happened was Adam and Hawa went and ate the fruit, and Yahweh came down and said, Adam, where are you? And Adam said, verse 10, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. Now, that word afraid is used a jillion times in the scriptures. It is in the Strong's Concordance, Hebrew 3:372. The word is yair. It means to be fear, to be afraid, to stand in awe, to be awed. In the Strong's versions of it, it just says morally to revere, to be afraid of, just to be frightened, to be terrible, to reverence. It has a broad spectrum of meanings, but it literally means to stir up something inside of your being. How would y'all like to learn how to overcome that and be fearless? Is that something you're interested in? All right, well, I want to go and turn and read one of my favorite stories that has to do with being fearless. And Seth and I were talking about it just a second ago. Let's go turn over to 1 Samuel 17. We're going to read most of it. It's going to be on page 296. We're going to read through 51, so we're going to read most of this. All right, verse 1. And the Philistines had gathered their armies for battle and came together at Socoh, which belongs to Yehudah, and encamped between Socoh and Asakah in Ephesus Damim. And Shaul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped at the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array to meet the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with the valley between them. Then a champion came out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Y'all, that's a big dude. I was looking at it the other night. It was like 9'9". Is that about right, Miles? All right, so almost 10 foot tall this guy is. And a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a scaled armor, and the height of his coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. and bronze shin guards were on his legs, and a bronze spear between his shoulders. I think it tells you here in a second. The wood of his spear was like the weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels. That's almost 15 pounds, y'all, just the head of his spear. This is a big dude. And a shield bearer went before him. And he stood and shouted at the armies of Israel and said, "Why have you come out to the line for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And you, the servants of Shaul? Choose a man of yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and shall smite me, then we shall be your servants. But if I overcome him and shall smite him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." Then the Philistine said, "This day I shall reproach the armies of Israel. Give me a man, and let us fight together." And Shaul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, and they were broken down and in great fear. Y'all imagine that? 9-foot dude, almost 10-foot dude out there saying, "I just want one of y'all. Just bring your biggest, baddest guy out here. Let's go to town." And all the army sat over there, and they were afraid. Now David, the son of an Ephraite of Bethlehem in Yehudah, whose name was Yishai, and he had 8 sons. And in the days of Shaul, the man was old among men. And the 3 oldest sons of Yishai went. They had gone to follow Shaul to the battle. And the names of the 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and his second Abinadab, and the third Shemaiah. And Dawid was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Shaul. But Dawid went and returned from Shaul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Interesting side note, oftentimes whenever we think about David and Goliath, we picture a young boy, and that's because something that gets said here in just a little bit. But I think he was a little bit older than that for a couple of reasons. Earlier, a couple of chapters before, he becomes Shaul's armor bearer. But in addition, it almost sounds like he got called to be part of the army, but they sent him back home to feed the sheep. So he may have been older than we think he is, probably around 20. Verse 16, and for 40 days the Philistines drew near, morning and evening, and took his stand. Then Yishai said to his son Dawid, "Please take your brothers an ephah of this dry grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp, and take these 10 cheeses to the commander of the thousands, and see for how your brothers are, and bring back news of them." For Shaul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So everybody thinks. And Dawid rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the herdsmen, and took and went as Yishai had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to fight. And they shouted for the battle. And Israel and the Philistines drew up in battle array, army against army. And Dawid left his supplies in the hand of the keeper of the supplies, and ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. And he was speaking with them when he saw the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines. And he spoke according to the same word, and Dawid heard. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, ran from him and were in great fear. So just a second ago it said that they were fighting with the Philistines. But it looks like more that the children of Israel, the army of Israel, were fighting amongst themselves or inside themselves. They were afraid. And the men of Israel said, verse 25, "Have you seen this man who has come up? For he has come up to reproach Israel. And it shall be that the man who smites him, the sovereign is going to enrich him with great riches, and give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption in Israel." And Dawid spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, "What shall be done for the man who smites the Philistines, and shall take away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should reproach the armies of Israel?" And the people answered him according to the word, saying, "This is what is done for the man that smites him." And Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's displeasure burned against Dawid. And he said, "Why did you come down here? And who have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." Dawid said, "Now what have I done? Was it but a word?" And he turned around from him towards another and said the same word. And these people answered him a word like the first word. And when the word which Dawid spoke were heard, they reported them to Shaul, and he went from him. And Dawid said to Shaul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant is going and shall fight with this Philistine." And Shaul said to Dawid, "You're not able to go out against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of battle from his youth." Then David said to Shaul, your servant has been tending sheep for his father. When a lion or a bear came out and took a lamb out of the flock, I went after it and smote it, and rescued it from its mouth. And when it rose against me, I caught it by the beard and smote it and killed it. Your servant has smitten both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, seeing he has reproached the armies of the living Elohim. Dude, this is a man's man right here. If he's a little boy, then he's a man's boy. He's went out there, he's killed lions, and he's killed bears, and he's seen this 10-foot dude, and he's like, I got this. What would it be to be like him? Fearless. And David said, Yahweh, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he does deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. I want y'all to think about that. And Shaul said to David, go, and Yahweh be with you. And Shaul dressed David with the garments and put a bronze helmet on his head and put a coat of armor on him. And David girded his sword over his garments and began to go. And he had not tried them. Then David said to Shaul, I'm unable to go with these, for I have not tried them. So David took them off, and he took his staff in his hand and chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the wadi and put them in a shepherd's bag in a pouch which he had. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. He didn't even have any army on. He had some rocks in a sling and a staff, and he's going up against a 10-foot dude. And the Philistines came and began drawing near to David, and the man bore the shield, went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he despised him, for he was a youth, and ruddy and good-looking. And the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his mighty ones. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I give your flesh to the birds of the heavens and to the beasts of the field. But David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Israel, whom you have reproached. This day Yahweh shall deliver you into my hand, and I shall smite you and take your head from you and give the carcass of the camp of the Philistines today to the birds of the heaven and the wild beasts of the earth, so that all the earth knows that Elohim is for Israel. And all the assembly, hallelujah, and all the assembly know that Yahweh does not save with sword and spear, for the battle belongs to Yahweh, and he shall give you into his hand. And it came to be when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran towards the army to meet the Philistine. I always thought that was really cool because he really isn't scared. He's like, I'm not just going to walk down here. He ran towards him. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and smote the Philistine on his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. Thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and he smote the Philistine and killed him. And there was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And Israel prevailed over all of them by one simple act. And it doesn't seem so simple because you got a dude that's a young boy going out and doing something that's just marvelous. I mean, he's fearless. For a long time thereafter, David then becomes a man of battle and learns how to stay cool under pressure. As a blessing for us, he actually writes a psalm about it and tells us what we need to do. He does it in this, but the psalm itself explains it in greater detail. If y'all don't mind, would you please turn to Psalms 27? We're going to read this whole thing. It's not very long, but we're going to dissect it just a little bit. All right, it's page 659. We're going to start in verse 1. Yahweh is my light and my deliverance. Whom shall I fear? Yahweh is the refuge of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evildoers come against me to eat my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they shall stumble and fall. Though any army encamps against me, my heart does not fear. Though battle comes up against me, even then would I be trusting. I I want y'all to know something, all right? Dawid is being chased during these times by the people he was just saved, pretty much. They probably put a bounty on his head. They said, you know what? We want him dead or alive. Shaul wanted him bad. He just said right here, the battle comes up against me. Let's put a different word in there. Let's say the war comes up against me. Can y'all imagine you being sought after that bad, that people are out there trying their best to kill you on a day-to-day basis? And you got David saying, Yahweh is my light, my deliverance. Whom shall I fear? By the way, this is that same word that Adam had just a little while ago. Yahweh is my refuge, Yahweh is my life. When he gets scared, whenever he starts worrying about battle coming up against him, what he does is he focuses on Yahweh. He puts Yahweh first and he trusts in him. Let's go on to verse 4. One matter I asked of Yahweh, this I seek, to dwell in the house of Yahweh all the days of my life, to see the pleasantness of Yahweh, and to inquire in his Hechel. Now we know he's out in the middle of the wilderness right now, so he really can't be in the Hechel all day long like he's wont to. But what he's doing is he's going there in his heart. He's seeking after Yahweh to be with his, what did he call it earlier? Pleasantness of Yahweh. He wants to center around Yahweh and get with him. And if all this other stuff is raging outside of him, it doesn't matter because I'm centered with Yahweh. And Yahweh's going to be my refuge and take care of me. Verse 5. For in the day of evil he hides me in his booth. In the covering of his tent he hides me. On a rock he raises me up. Even though all this stuff is around me, he's got me. And I know that inside my being. And now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me. And I offer in his tent with shouts of joy, and I sing, yea, I sing praises to Yahweh. Hear, O Yahweh, when I cry with my voice. He's crying right here. He's afraid. But to overcome that fear, he starts putting everything on Yahweh. He even sings him songs. He gets excited all about Yahweh. That's putting Yahweh first in your life. And show me favor and answer me. To my heart you have said, seek my face. Your face, Yahweh, I seek. Hallelujah. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in displeasure. You have been my help. Do not leave me nor forsake me, O Elohim of my deliverance. When my father and my mother have forsaken me, then Yahweh does take me in. Teach me your way, O Yahweh, and lead me in smooth paths because of my enemies, and do not give over to the desire of my adversaries. For false witnesses have arisen against me, and they breathe out cruelty to me. What if I had not believed to see the goodness of Yahweh in the land of the living? Have you ever pondered that question before? What if I have not believed to see the goodness of Yahweh in the land of the living? Where would you be right now? What kinds of things would be overcoming you if you didn't have that inside of you? Wait on Yahweh. Be strong and let him strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on Yahweh. This is a very good tactic to use with whatever kind of fear is overcoming you, from cave crickets all the way to life or death situations. And if you don't believe me, let's check out a life or death situation where we see this being implemented. Let's go all the way and look at another hero of mine. Let's go to Matthew 26. We're going to be in verse 37. This is going to be on page 950. What's happening right now is the Last Supper is taking place, and Yahshua is sitting outside waiting for the guards to come get him. And he knows it's about to happen. He just straight up knows. And so what he does is he goes and he centers himself with Yahweh. Start reading, verse 37. And he took with him Kepha and the two sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and deeply distressed. Y'all think Yahshua was afraid? Yes. Dude, he knows he's about to get beaten to a bloody pulp and killed the next day. Well, actually, that's a little bit later, but no, it's the next day. Can you imagine what's raging on the inside of him? I can run, I know I can run, but do I really want to do that? No, I have to obey Yahweh. Yahweh has to be my first. Verse 38, and then he said to them, my being is exceedingly grieved, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. He needed the support of his buds. And going forward a little bit, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, O Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I desire, but as you desire. And he came to the taught ones and found them asleep, And he said to Cephas, so you were not able to watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into trial. The spirit indeed is eager, but the flesh is weak. Again he went away and a second time and prayed, saying, O Father, if it's possible for this to pass unless I drink it, let your desire be done. He knew it, man. He knew what was about to happen, and he's still saying, Yahweh, I put you first. Even above my own life, I put you first. I trust in you. Let's see. Verse 43, and he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy, and he left them and went away again and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then he came and his taught ones and said to them, still sleeping and taking rest? See, the hour has come near, and the son of Adam is delivered up into the hands of the sinners. Rise, let us go. See, he who delivers me up is come near. And while he was still speaking, see, Yehuda, one of the 12, with a large crowd with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. And he who was delivered him up gave them the sign, whomever I kiss, it is he, seize him. And he does it, he kisses him, and they seize him. Yeshua knew he was about to die. Even if he was afraid of what was about to happen, when you're focusing on Yahweh alone, seeking him and his will, fear will not paralyze you. You'll be able to do things Yahweh has set before you. Fear is okay to have inside of you. It's what you do with it when it's inside of you. I mean, because it's common. I mean, it can be anything that you're afraid of. Whenever you put Yahweh with you, he will dictate whether you can go forward or whether you have to lay down on the ground and get in the fetal position. Yeshua knew he was about to die, and instead of running away like he could have, he was obedient unto death and put Yahweh first and ran forward and met it head on, his own death. It's pretty marvelous. Let that sink in for a second. He went and met his death head on, knowing it was about to happen. And Yahweh strengthened him. Yahweh's been trying to tell us that we need to put him before everything and have him as what we go after from the very beginning. Let's go look at Exodus, or at the Exodus, where Yahweh started teaching us this. Let's go to Exodus 14. Y'all are about to learn that some fear is very important. We're going to be in verse 10 through 14. So it's going to be on page 70. Verse 10, and when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and saw the Mitzrites coming after them, and they were greatly, greatly afraid. So the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh, and they said to Moshe, did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there are no graves in Mitzrayim? What is this that you have done to us to bring us up out of Mitzrayim? Can you imagine this? I mean, they just had some really cool stuff happen to them. All of a sudden, they're worried about dying that quick. But they're deeply afraid. You know, fear is personal. Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Mitzrayim, saying, leave us alone and let us serve the Mitzrites, for it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrites than to die in the wilderness. And Moshe said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Mitzrites whom you see today, you're never, never to see again. Yahweh does fight for you, and you keep still. If you read on past this, Moshe didn't even know what was exactly about to happen, because he goes and he cries out to Yahweh, and Yahweh's like, why are you crying to me? Go put your stick out there and take care of this. But the first thing that he did was he centered himself back to Yahweh and said, look, y'all don't be scared. Let's watch what Yahweh's going to do. And they were able to get out. So is fear wrong? No, I mean, it depends. If it paralyzes you and you aren't able to act, it does. But there's actually a fear that's very important. Let's go look at Deuteronomy 4. This is the heart of the whole matter. Deuteronomy 4, 7 through 10. It's on page 188. For what great nation is there which has Elohim so near to it, as Yahweh our Elohim is to us whenever we call on him? And what great nation is there that has such laws and righteous right rulings like all this Torah which I set before you this day? Only guard yourself and guard your life diligently. Listen to these words now. This is life or death stuff. Guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, and lest they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life, and you shall make them known to your children and your grandchildren. The day when you stood before Yahweh your Elohim at Horeb, Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me, and I make them hear my word so that they learn to what? That is the exact same word that means to be terrified of. To be terrified of Yahweh. And there is a certain amount of respect that needs to be there, because if he wants to, he can open up the world and have it swallow you up. Swallow you up. I think sometimes we think that we are more than just servants to Yahweh. He loves us, but we are servants to him. And we are nothing more than clay to him. If he wanted to on us because we weren't doing what we were supposed to, he could take his thumb and squish us down into the earth, and that'd be okay. The whole point here is, by following Yahweh's words, we learn to fear him. And there's lots of scripture to support that. Let's go check. Well, let me finish that one up. Fear me all the days they live on the earth, and teach them to your children. Let's go to Deuteronomy 6 and check it out again. It's going to be 6, 1 through 25. And this is the command, the laws, and the right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land you are passing to possess, so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim. What is the fear of Yahweh? According to this. Now, let's don't go to Proverbs yet. What does it say right here? Guard his laws. That's the fear of Elohim. To guard all his laws. Hey, that's the next sentence. And his commands, which I command you, and your sons and your grandsons, all the day of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Yisrael, and shall guard to do it, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly as Yahweh your Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you in the land, flowing with milk and honey. Just out of curiosity, if you're not increasing like this just said, do you think you have the fear of Yahweh in you? Side note. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug that you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim for the house of bondage. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, and serve him, and swear by his name. Do not go after other mighty ones, the mighty ones of the people who are all around you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a jealous El. Let's jump down to 24. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh our Elohim for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh our Elohim, as he has commanded us today. This is the fear that keeps you alive. The other kind of fear can kill you. It can kill you in lots of ways. It can kill you physically if you don't act and don't move in time. It can also kill you physically where you're scared to go out to the gym, and so you get too big and you die from cholesterol or heart attack. It can also kill you emotionally because you're scared to go and talk to the one that was meant to be yours. There are so many different types of fears that can kill you deep inside. But when you put Yahweh first, when you center around him, it is good for your life and it will prolong your life. Truthfully, y'all are in fear today. I know that's right. I mean, y'all are just straight up fearful. If you don't believe me, let's go look at Deuteronomy 14. By being at Sukkot. Hey, but is the fear of Yahweh hard? Is it too far for you? No. All right. Deuteronomy 14, 23 through 29. And you shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim in the place where he chooses to make your name dwell, the tithe of your grain and the new wine and your oil and the firstlings of your herds and your sheep, so that you learn to fear Yahweh your Elohim always. But when the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to bring the tithe, or when the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to put your name is too far from you, when Yahweh your Elohim blesses you, then you shall give it in silver, and shall take the silver in your hand and go to the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses, and you shall use the silver for whatever your being desires, for cattle or for sheep, for wine or for strong drink, for whatever your being desires, and you shall eat there before Yahweh your Elohim, and shall rejoice, you and your household, and do not forsake the Levite who is within your gates, for he has no part or inheritance with you. And at the end of every third year, no, don't worry about that one. But anyway, so being by at Sukkot, you have the fear of Yahweh. What happens if you do not have the fear of Yahweh? Let's check that out. Deuteronomy 28. So what was the fear of Yahweh again? Keep His commands. I ain't got the Proverbs yet. Deuteronomy 28, 58, and 59. Deuteronomy 28 has the blessings and the curses in it. Verse 58. If you do not guard to do all the words of this Torah that are written in this book, to fear this esteemed and awesome name, Yahweh your Elohim, awesome name, then Yahweh shall bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and lasting plagues, and grievous and lasting sicknesses. And if you want to go and read the 2 pages of curses that happen, or it's not 2 pages, it's 2 columns of curses versus the 1 column of blessings, if you don't do it, go be my guest. You won't like what happens. We are supposed to fear. All right, Yahweh built it inside of us. It's a protection mechanism, but we're definitely supposed to fear Yahweh. Let's run through the Proverbs real quick because everybody wanted to get to them. Let's go over to Proverbs 1.
I was just trying to do your message.
That's all right.
You gotta stay a while, that's right.
All right, we'll pop through these pretty quick. Proverbs 1:7. It's on page 728. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and knowledge. You want to be a fool? And discipline. Do you want to be a fool? Thank you, Pat. I appreciate you disciplining me. I need to reprove. If you don't have the fear of Yahweh, is it safe to say that you're a fool? All right, let's go to Proverbs, going down to 27 and 28. Chapter 1, 28, 27, 28. When your dread comes like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, what does this sound like? Fear. Oh, I lost my place. Let them then call on me, but I answer not. Let them seek me, but not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of Yahweh. If you don't have the fear of Yahweh, that other stuff will overtake you. But if you do have the fear of Yahweh, if you center around Him first, like Dawid taught us in Psalms, you'll be able to trudge through anything that's in front of you and even meet death head on. Proverbs 3:5. This is one of my favorite ones. Matter of fact, Yahweh gave me this whenever He told me it was okay to marry Ashley, or that I should marry Ashley. Because I was asking, I wanted to make sure I had His blessing. Proverbs 3:5 through 8. Trust in Yahweh with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Know Him in all your ways, and He makes all your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh and turn away from evil. It is healing to your navel and moistening to your bones. Have y'all ever been in a tense situation and got a nervous stomach? If you got the fear of Yahweh, it's healing to your navel. Just interesting. All right, let's go to Proverbs 8:13. All right, Matt. The fear of Yahweh is to hate evil. I have hated pride and arrogance in the evil way and the perverse mouth. Let's go to Proverbs 10:27 through 30. Just keep flipping. The fear of Yahweh prolongs days, but the years of the wrong ones are shortened. The righteous look forward to joy, but the expectancy of the wrong one perishes. If you don't have the fear of Yahweh, you don't have any expectancy. The way of Yahweh is a stronghold for the perfect. He takes care of you, just like Dawid said. But ruin in the workers of wickedness. But ruin to the workers of wickedness. The righteous is never shaken, while the wrong shall not dwell in the earth. Interesting. Proverbs 14:26 and 27. In the fear of Yahweh is strong trust. Yahweh's got you. If you are doing what you're supposed to, Yahweh will be with you. There's strong trust in that. And His children have a place of refuge. The fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life, to turn away from the snares of death. Let's go to 19:23. It's a fountain of life, y'all. It gives life to you. It's not just meaning. It really can bring you through. The fear of Yahweh leads to life, and He remains satisfied. He is not visited by not visited by evil. Just for emphasis, I want to go back to what Dawid said. What if this is Psalms 27, 13, and 14. What if I had not believed to see the goodness of Yahweh? Would I have life? If I had not believed in the goodness of Yahweh, would I have His Word? Would I have the fear of Yahweh to keep me going? What if I have not believed to see the goodness of Yahweh in the land of the living? Wait on Yahweh, be strong, and let Him strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on Yahweh. Our President FDR wrote in his inaugural address, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, he kind of had it right. He just didn't realize that he had it right. The only thing we have to fear is Yahweh. And by guarding His commands, that's how we show that we do fear Him. And that is the true fear of Him. We do not have to fear man. We need to have the fear of Yahweh. Last night we had something very interesting happen. We're at Tabernacles. We're having a good time, and we went out to go shoot our guns. And there's some neighbors that apparently have some mules, and they got spooked real bad. And we don't know. We haven't been over there yet, but the neighbor came over and was disgruntled about it. And so we went riding over there. And every time something like that happens, you can have a twinge of fear inside of you. You start thinking about, is the law going to get called? Or we're going to have to go to court over something, Is it going to turn into a fist fight? Because people get disgruntled and they act stupid. Well, last night as me and Dad and Matt were riding up the hill, none of that stuff entered my mind. The very first thing that entered my mind was, what does the Torah say about this? If we are in error, what does the Torah say about this? If a mule has been damaged, if anything's been damaged, what does the Torah say about that? Make it right. You shall certainly repay. You fix the things that you are broken. That's what we thought about the whole time on the ride up there. We had the fear of Yahweh. We were seeking His commands, and I wasn't worried about whether there was ordinances against shooting guns or any kind of other law that was in there. My worries was on the fear of Yahweh. We got up there, and God was disgruntled just a little bit. And all we had to do was go over there and find out really and truly. He just wanted to make sure his mules were okay, and he wanted to make sure that, he was going to be respected on his property. You gave him those two things, and they're good to go. There's nothing there. The main thing, though, that I think was Yahweh came down and put His hand on it, and we didn't have to worry about any other, because the guy was pretty ornery while he was down there and whenever we first showed up. But because we were worried more about what Yahweh's will was versus any of the other stuff, I believe Yahweh took care of it, no problem. Whenever you have any kind of fear come into your life, make sure you center on Yahweh and make sure you center on His words. If you can get through that, you'll be able to face death head on. All right, so at the beginning of this, I told you, how would you like to become fearless? Would y'all like to know? All right. I've been drinking on this cup for this whole time. At the beginning, it was full. Is there less in there now? I promise you I just swallowed that. So, if you take away the fear of man, and some stuff's still going to come on you. I mean, stuff just happens. If you take away some of that fear and learn how to act in that fear, face your fears, and do whatever it is that Yahweh has set before you, but above all, only fear Yahweh, would that be less fear than you had before? Would that make you fear less? You can be fearless. If you're smart, you will always fear Yahweh. Everything else, well, fear it less. Yevrekeka Yahweh va'ishmereka, Ya'ir Yahweh panavaleka v'kaneka, Yasai Yahweh panavaleka v'yasem lecha shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you perfect and complete peace.